Welcome to RECO12. My name is Justin, and I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a recovering addict, and am blessed to host this meeting and podcast. RECO12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds, and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking this path. We come together from all places, all faiths and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others who are walking this similar path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented many fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds, and we will be doing that in one of the projects I'll be announcing here in just a minute. Today's speaker for the 172nd meeting is Sean B., who will be speaking on his experience, strength, and hope in regards to the concept of getting back to the basics. We will get to his talk in the Q&A afterwards in just a minute. First, for a little bit of business. The RECO12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and have more and more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. RECO12 Shares is one of the super exciting projects that allows anyone at any time to record a solution-based 12-step share and also to listen to others experience strength and hope anytime, anywhere, on your phone or wherever you listen to podcasts. Another quickly approaching project is a big book roundtable discussion where we will be swimming through the first 164 pages of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a few recovered individuals who are past speakers in RECO12 and who really try to know and live the Big Book. We will also be doing another amazing project on real-life recovery information and solutions as found in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in regards to real-world recovery and real-life problems, with a weekly 20 to 30-minute Q&A with Nikki M. in her Noodle It Out with Nikki style. If you're not aware of that, we'll get that. You'll love it, I promise you. And if that's not enough, another really cool expansion of RECO12 speaker meetings is on the near horizon too, also starting in July. This will be at a day and time that is more conducive to our European, Asian, and African listeners and will allow you to more easily attend live in those meetings and also be able to be a person who speaks in those meetings. If you're from other parts of the world and what we do now is typically in the middle of the night or the wee hours of the morning, you'll be able to join in there, and I'm really excited about that. Your donations and subscriptions are making this all possible, as there are costs to build and maintain all of them. On that note, RECO12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our 12th step in this manner. We gratefully accept contributions through PayPal and Venmo through the links in the chat and the show notes. I'll get those in there. We also offer a monthly subscription program called RECO12 Spearheads. To join in and help support these cool projects, please consider donating at RECO12.com/support. I'll put that link in the chat and in the show notes. And, we look forward each meeting to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to introduce today's guest speaker, Sean B. Here's a little bit about Sean. Sean came into the rooms of AA on May 22nd, 2019, after coming to the realization that he was unable to regulate his emotional state without a drink. He quickly recognized that there was a large gap between the expectation of where he thought he would be in life and the reality of where he was. While he was able to stay sober for a year, he half measured the steps and didn't make much spiritual progress. On February 27th of 2020, he came into the Big Book Sponsorship Fellowship and threw himself into the steps and abandoned himself to God. In that process, he's learned much about addiction, emotional sobriety, and codependency. He's worked with over 30 sponsees and maintained 3 years of sobriety from hard drugs and alcohol. Take it away, Sean. We're excited to hear about getting back to the basics from you today.
Hello, Justin. Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Sean. I'm a recovering alcoholic and member of the beautiful fellowship of the Big Book Sponsorship Fellowship. Grateful to be here today. Thank you all for joining. Today I want to talk about kind of just a basic run through of the steps and what that looks like. For me, I didn't understand the purpose. I didn't understand the structure of the steps, the goals, and I just kind of want to do a quick run through, 20 minutes, and hopefully if you're new or even if you've been here for a while, you walk away with just a better understanding of how these things are designed and what the goal is. Yes, so let's jump in. One thing that kept me from joining this program was a little thing called contempt prior to investigation. And to help get over that, we've already said the set aside prayer, so we won't go ahead and do that again. But That was a very powerful prayer that I learned early on, um, just to help me get past this preconceived notion of what I thought I knew. And I apply that in my life in a lot of areas, not just the standard set aside that we say before meetings sometimes, but God, help me set aside what I think I know about this podcast. Help me set aside what I think I know about recovery in general and listening to others and working with sponsees. There's so many things that I think I know about that and I know some, but when I ask God to remove what I think and bless me with a new experience, he always does. Funny story on that. I was in San Francisco, 2012. I just graduated from college and I wanted to become a life coach. After graduating, I was looking to become a life coach, but I had an interview at a tech company and I was waiting in a coffee shop for this interview time. And I heard two ladies and they were coaching each other. And it seemed really interesting. The stuff that they were doing was fascinating to me. And I was listening to them secretly, kind of pause my AirPods, or I guess it was cord phones at that time, but paused my iPod and started listening in. And I waited there for about 30 minutes just listening. And when they got up, I said, "Excuse me." I was so excited. I said, "Are you a life coach?" And she said, "No, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous." And I remember going from being ecstatically excited to meet this woman to, "Oh my God, you're an alcoholic? That is terrible." And I shut the door. I walked away and I was like, I want no part of that. I had this preconceived idea of what it meant. And it's funny that I find myself in this program 7 short years later. So here we go, getting in. The main goal, the main purpose of this program, the first thing is to get us to God. It's to get us to have a loving, powerful, intimate relationship with our Creator. And when we do that, our fears fall from us. We experience perfect peace and ease, all of these promises that I hope some of you are familiar with. And the goal, how we get there, is by doing these steps. And one of the most important things, one of the foundation stones of our recovery, is helping others or becoming a sponsor, right? So there's a spiritual concept that we get what we give. So if we want relief, then give relief. If we want help, give help. So to anyone who hears that, becoming a sponsor, and thinks, "Oh, I'm not ready for that," or "I can't do that," just set that aside for now. Just keep working the steps. When you get to that spot, you're going to be in a different place. This program changes us, and hopefully you have a sponsor that pushes you, to encourages you strongly to get a first sponsee like mine, because that's when the real recovery started for me. Getting into step 1, I'm just going to quickly kind of run through the steps and give you some tips, give you my thoughts, and then at the end we'll go for some questions. Step 1 is powerlessness and unmanageability. Those are the 2 parts to step 1. How it worked for me, this is directly out of the Big Book. I drank and acted out because I like the effect produced by acting out. The sensation was so elusive, though, that while it harmed me in many ways, I cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. So my mind lies to me. I would drink, it would bring me harm, pain, shame, remorse. It hurt my relationships, it hurt my body. But the next day, and I would say I'm never going to drink again. The next day, my mind would lie to me, and I found myself drinking. I became restless, irritable, and discontented. I was bored, depressed, and anxious. And I could not experience, and until I experienced the sense of ease and comfort, which came by taking a few drinks, I remained in that state. After I'd succumbed to this desire, the phenomenon of craving. So once I put alcohol in my body, once I use a drug, once I open a browser with porn, this craving in my body develops, and I pass through a well-known stage of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink. And I thought it was willpower. I thought I wasn't strong enough. I thought I didn't have what it took. And it was only until I came into this program that I realized I was suffering something that was higher than willpower, that needed a higher power to overcome. And it says right here, we repeat this over and over, and until we can experience an entire psychic change, there's little hope for our recovery. So that's what happened to me in this program. I experienced an entire psychic change. Psychic, that is personality, behavior, thoughts, feelings, emotions. Everything about me is different than when I came in this program 3 years ago. I could not speak on a podcast 3 years ago. I was too anxious. My heart would be racing. My voice would be trembling. I wouldn't be able to be here. I could probably do it drunk, but that's why I was here in the first place, right? Okay, I want to go over this analogy that we use. It's called, so addicts and alcoholics are like drowning men and women. If we don't find some way of keeping our heads above water, we are going to drown. So we look for some kind of power to keep us afloat. We notice there are logs floating on the surface. These logs look like they're capable of keeping our heads above water, but once we reach for one of these logs, we find that we can only hold on for maybe a day, a week, a month, a year, maybe longer, but at some point the log fails us as a power, we slip and drown. So these logs, we describe them as easier, softer ways, middle of the road solutions, half measures, or human aids. This is my direct experience. I was drowning for many, many years. And then I'd find a log. Maybe it was meditation. And I joined a meditation club and my life seemed to get better. For a month, I was free. I felt this peace and ease. But eventually that faded and I started to drown again. What else did I use? Willpower. I really struggled. I wrote these contracts with my buddies and we would say like, okay, if Sean smokes weed today, he owes Derek $200, and we'd sign it. We'd make it really official, and it would work for a week, and then it wouldn't. And then I'd end up owing my buddy a lot of money. And after we swapped about $400 or $500, we decided to give up on that program. Self-help. I use self-help books. I use personal development courses, positive thinking, affirmation. I felt like I used anything and everything as a log, and logs were good. They helped temporarily, but at some point they failed me as a permanent solution. Until I found this program, this program later on, it talks about the loving and powerful hand of God. So we are drowning and the loving and powerful hand of God is going to come in and save us. At first, it feels like a flimsy reed. Those cattails that are on the sides of ponds and lakes, and reaching for those, they're not going to save us. But eventually this loving and powerful hand of God comes down, and I describe it as like a trapeze grip. If you ever know a trapeze grip, they like link forearm to forearm. And that's what God is doing. He's coming down, he's practicing this powerful trapeze grip, and he's just effortlessly lifting us out of the water. And when we work this program to our fullest, that's what recovery looks like. That's what prevents us and keeps us from drowning. So if you or a friend or someone you know is struggling with this and you're not sure if you are an addict or alcoholic, the test right here is if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking, using, or acting out, you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably an alcoholic or an addict. And if that be the case, you are suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. So a spiritual experience is what you're going to get from this program. And a spiritual experience that can come, they call it either the experience, which happens suddenly. God comes to us in a flash. We have this revelation, this download, this instant change in a meditation, in a dream, whatever it may be. That suddenly changes us. Or we have an awakening, which happens a little slower. But both of them come as a result of working these steps, as a result of clearing our fears, clearing our resentments, getting right with God. We become free. And when we become free, we start to have that awakening, that experience. So step one, we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. And this is the first step in recovery. The delusion or lie that we are like other people, or presently maybe, has to be smashed. For me, that lie has been very strong. There's been many times where I've thought, oh, I can handle a drink, or oh, I can smoke a joint. And it's proved over and over and over that I cannot do that. The idea, this is on page 30 of the big book, the idea or lie that somehow, someday, I will control and enjoy my drinking, using, or acting out behavior is the great obsession of every abnormal user. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better, and many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. So that line is very key to anyone who doesn't quite feel like they're there yet. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better, if left untreated. There's a caveat there, if left untreated. And what that looks like is this is a progressive illness. This is going to get worse. If you're already struggling, if you don't do something about it, you are going to struggle harder. It's going to get more intense. The craving gets stronger. The alcohol, the effect produced gets less. And eventually it just progresses into something very dangerous. The good news is that rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And those who do not recover, or those who do not recover, are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. Okay, so we have to be honest. The keys to this program, I say, how do you work this program? It's an acronym for honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Honesty, will you answer these questions honestly with a simple yes or no? I always say, if you want to know if someone has some dysfunction in their life, if you're curious whether or not they're an alcoholic or an addict, just ask them a yes or no question and then wait. If they give you an explanation, a justification, or a rationalization, they're likely suffering from what we're suffering from, right? It's very rare that I receive yeses or nos back from people who work this program, unless they've come to an understanding of what that requires. Open-mindedness, we got to lay aside prejudices. That's the set aside prayer really helps for that. And then willingness, we just need to be willing. And if we're not willing, we ask for willingness. Okay, we just ask God. Step 2, came to believe in a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Lack of power, that's our dilemma. Again, this loving and powerful hand of God is going to come in. If you're uncertain about the word God, just use a higher power. The beautiful thing about this is we have our own conception of God. Make it the fellowship, make it your sponsor for a temporary time, whatever it takes. Just believe in something greater than yourself. Believe in what happened to your sponsor. Don't make your sponsor your God, but just believe in that power that he believes in. Any little bit of open door, openness to anything outside of ourselves, that's all it takes. If you can believe or are willing to believe in a power greater than yourself, then you have taken this step. Step 3, we make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. For me, it's as simple as Sean is fired, God is hired, right? I fire myself every day. I wake up in the morning, I get on my knees, I say the step 3 prayer, I surrender to God, and I submit my life over to the care of him. And when I do that, things work really well. When I take my power back, when I try to take my position back, it doesn't go so well. It does not. It says right here, I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. So all things, that's everything. Everything in my life, I must turn into this Father of light, this higher power that I have.
Hello everyone, I'm Claudio Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire podcast. I started the show back in April 2021 with the intention to interview energy healers, empaths, doctors, shamans, people that went through transformational spiritual experiences that were worth sharing. We live in a time when the divine is tugging at our sleeve to pay attention to our feelings, thoughts, and intuition. Spiritual Inspire podcast is one of the safe spaces that offers such love and guidance. By sharing their experiences with the divine, my guests will reconnect you, the listener, with your life path that is cluttered with fear, doubt, trauma, and patterns that hold you back from reaching your full potential. Check us out on the link below. Thank you.
On this step, our real purpose, if you're looking, I was bored, I was anxious, and I was depressed. And one main reason is because I didn't have a purpose. Okay. So my real purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. Whenever I'm confused, whenever I'm lost, I just say, God, how can I be of maximum service to you and your people? It's amazing what he does when we surrender and when we submit and when we're willing to help others. It gets me out of my selfishness. It gets me out of my self-centeredness. It's a beautiful thing. And it gives me something to live for. That's step 1, 2, and 3, of which when we do those 3 steps properly, we walk, they say we walk through a triumphant arch to freedom. And if you've never seen this arch, you can Google, step 1, 2, and 3, triumphant arch to freedom. It'll show you a picture. But step 1 is the foundation stone. We need to have a solid foundation in order to work this program, in order to get to freedom. Step 2 is the cornerstone. That's where all the masons build in accordance to that cornerstone. If that cornerstone's off, then the entire structure is going to be off. And step 3 is the keystone. And that's the center stone that keeps the arch from caving in on itself. When we work all 3 of them well, honest, open, willing, then we have a solid structure and we can walk to freedom. All right, we're on step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. For me, I'm just going to talk about resentments and fear today for the basics. And really resentment is this: there are no justified resentments. If you're confused at all, just know that there are no justified resentments. And that means, we just need to realize that by working this step, we realize that we are the cause of our resentments, that we have stepped on the toes of our fellows and they have retaliated. And we mistakenly think it's their fault. We hold it against them. But really, when we work this properly, we understand that it's our job to be free of those resentments. It's our job to find forgiveness and freedom in that process. And when we let go of that, we get unblocked, right? It says the purpose of this step is to be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. It's a vigorous action. It's a personal house cleaning. And when we do this properly, there's freedom. The next portion is fear. Okay, fear. I was filled with fear. I didn't realize it at the time, but as I started making my fear list, I understood that I had I think I had 59 fears. And it was, the reason I had them was because I was self-reliant, because I wasn't relying on a higher power. I just didn't have in me the power it took to overcome that. And when I turned it over to God, when I found something greater than myself, that fear started to fade. There was a lot of work that was required. It says vigorous action. It was one of my harder steps. But after I did it, after I took step 4 and 5, which I'll talk about next, there was a sense of freedom. For the first time, God entered my heart. God entered my life. I started feeling something that I hadn't before. It was a beautiful experience, and it only came by working step 5. So step 5, we admit to God and ourselves and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Now, I would say we basically, by working the steps, we usually share this with our sponsor. And if you're working these, then your sponsor will explain exactly how this goes. But don't stop there. Don't just share this with our sponsor, right? Share this with people you trust. If you have a fear, call someone and say, listen, man, I'm having this fear. I'm struggling. Put it down on paper, is what our book says, and release it to God. Ask that person to pray for you. Ask that person for some big book advice, some spiritual advice, and let that go. It doesn't have to be this this long drawn out process. I hear all the time people say, oh, well, I got to wait till do step 5 with my sponsor. No, at any given moment, you can call and share with anyone, right? That's the beauty of this program. Step 5, some of the promises, we start to, our fears fall from us. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease, and we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. That is exactly what happened for me. Step 6, we were entirely ready to remove all these character defects. And I'll combine this with a little step 7. We humbly ask God to remove all these shortcomings. For me, this was, my sponsor told me these steps were about stop doing the things that I want to do and start doing the things that I don't want to do. And it can be as simple as, I don't want to wake up and make my bed every day, so I do it. What do I want to do? I want to get high. I want to hang out. I want to be lazy, watch Netflix, and I don't do that. Right? I've switched my mindset, and over time, it's led me to just be open to something. It's allowed me to walk into something greater than I ever thought was possible. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them. So I think this step produced a lot of fear in me, and all I highlighted now is willing. I just need to be willing to make amends to them. I don't have to do it today. I just have to be willing to do it eventually. And that produced just a tremendous amount of relief in my life. I had this fear and I wasn't ready. But the big book says we pray for willingness whenever we need to, that fear crops up. So I prayed for a lot of willingness. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. I don't want to get into the amends process right now because this is basics, but basically, whatever you've been doing, try to do the opposite. Try to make living amends, put it on paper, and try to live that out. I wouldn't encourage you to go make any direct amends without talking it over with your sponsor. But what you can do, if you've been a selfish, inconsiderate asshole all your life, start being generous, start helping people. If you have a poor relationship with your mother or your father, call them, ask them about themselves, take them to lunch, go get a massage, do something nice for them, right? Whatever you've been doing, if it's wrong, try to do the opposite and live that out. That's a living amends. And you don't need your sponsor's guidance. You can get it, but you don't listen to the excuses. Don't say, oh, I need to wait till step 9 to do this. Start living in accordance to the way you want to behave, and your life is going to start to change. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. You can Google personal inventory, step 10. There is a direct, prompt. This is really key. I do this. I try to do this every day. It really helps me understand when I'm getting in selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, or fear. And when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance is our code of others. If we're practicing this step every day, beautiful things will start to happen. It's really quite simple. We just need to put it into action. Got about 3 minutes. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will and the power to carry it out. They do a beautiful job to explaining this. Step 11 suggests prayer, which is talking to God, and meditation, which is listening to God. And how we do this, we have 3 focuses. We have a PM focus, an AM focus, and a midday focus. And these are all on page 86. I'm running out of time here, so we won't get into it. But look at page 86. If you've done these steps and you're not reading page 86 often, I would encourage you to do so. That's what's gonna help your spiritual fitness stay on point. You stay fit. You need to work out. You need to get to the gym if you want to stay fit. This is how you get to the gym in this program. All right. And step 12, Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and addicts to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So this entire step is about working with others, okay? Basically, if you're shaky, you better work with others. If other measures fail, work with another alcoholic. Nothing will ensure immunity from drinking, using, or acting out as intensive work with other alcoholics, okay? The promise is here, life will take on a new meaning, to watch people recover, to see them help others, and we watch loneliness vanish. We see fellowships grow up about us, and we have a host of friends. This is an experience you will not want to miss. This is my direct experience. And I want to share with you, you don't need to start sponsoring to work this step. I would encourage you all to sponsor, but get with a friend, get with someone in the program. I have a tribe of people, a fellowship of people, a herd of people that at any moment I can call and I can say, man, let's just walk through step 3 together. It doesn't need to be a sponsee-sponsor relationship. You can coach, mentor, practice teaching or encouraging people at any given moment, anytime. And that is what we need to be doing if we're shaky, if measures are failing. That gives us immunity, right? Call, text, reach out, build that. We have there's tribes available. There's tons of sick and dying, desperate people that need this message, and it's our job to carry it. The last thing I'll say is that it's easy to rest on our laurels. It's easy to give up on this program of action. And if we do, we're headed for trouble. I've given up. I've rested many times. I've found myself in trouble. We're given a daily reprieve based upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And it's every day that we must carry the vision of God and his will into all our activities. How can I serve thee? Not thy will be done, not mine. To close, we trust God, we clean house, and we help others. I am Sean. I'm an alcoholic in recovery, and I'm grateful to be here.
Sean, thank you so much. Love that run through of the steps. Very concise, very quick, and very helpful. I really appreciate it. For the newcomer, there's not much better you're going to find in going through what the steps are in just 20, 25 minutes. What a beautiful thing. Thank you, Sean. A reminder to our live audience, if you have questions for Sean, please type them in the Q&A link at the bottom of your window. I've written down several questions, and I'll get to all of those that come in as we get here. One quick note, I'm going to issue a public apology. The link that was sent out in the email for those of you who are on the email group was broken. So I had several emails, several text messages, several direct messages during this saying, hey, the link is broken. I apologize. Hopefully you get to hear this later, but grateful for all of those of you who are here. We have a nice crowd, which is nice. All right. So a reminder again, send questions into the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. Looks like two speech bubbles over the top of each other. I'm going to get to one of these questions here that I wrote down, Sean. You mentioned that you have a real purpose now, and it's the real purpose as defined in the big book. What was your purpose that you envisioned for yourself before, and what has it meant to you now that you have a real purpose in your life that seems to have more weight and meaning?
Yeah, certainly. Well, prior to self-reflection, prior to really just focusing in on myself, my purpose was very hedonistic, meaning I was living for self-pleasure. I was just having a good time, going out, drinking, having fun, enjoying the moment. And that purpose didn't serve me very well. I got carried away. My kind of coming into some self-reflection, I realized my purpose was to just listen to and learn from others in order to help them live a better life. I wanted to help people live a better life. I didn't know how to do that. I was lost and confused on how to do that. About a year or two after kind of focusing on that purpose, I came into this program. And now it's just, I wake up most every day with just a sense of passion I'm excited about the opportunities that are presented to me. I've been in this fellowship for 3 or 4 years now. And so the network that I have has grown, And I get people reaching out that I haven't spoken to in years, people coming back into the program, people being recommended to me, just there's struggling people all around me. And I get to take moments out of my day and just impart a little bit of wisdom that's been given to me just as a result of this program and these steps. It's nothing that anyone else on this call, I don't have anything that anyone isn't available to anyone else. I'm just putting it into action and just deriving a strong sense of value and worth from it.
Thank you for sharing that. Question for you. You know, when I was a newcomer, I didn't want to reach out to somebody else that had that light on. It was like, oh, I'm going to bother them. They aren't going to want to talk to me. I'm a loser. And sometimes so me as an active addict, if somebody's calling me to say, hey, I need some help, I'm going to start getting resentful about that. But me in recovery, that's not how it is. Tell me a little bit about when you get a call from somebody that maybe you haven't spoken with before ever, or, you know, somebody that you haven't heard from in a long time. What emotions do you have, and what are you willing to do at that moment in order to connect with them?
Yeah, certainly. I experienced the same feeling, the feeling that why would this guy want to talk to me? I'm just going to be a bother. And on the other side of it, it's you are not a bother at all. Working this program, that's how I was set free, by being contacted by other struggling individuals. I found freedom. So if you care about me, if you care about others, you'll actually, when you're hurting, you'll actually reach out. It's not selfish. It's actually selfless, because in a way, you are helping them more than they are helping you. So just really try to remember that message, and the fact that if they are working this program, it's going to be the highlight of their day. It's the highlight of my day. Working with someone who's willing and who's desperate and who wants this recovery, there is nothing that gets me more energy. It's like a Red Bull. When I get off the phone with someone after a good 15, 20-minute conversation about recovery, I feel like I've slammed a Red Bull, but it's like life-giving. It's not draining, or it doesn't make me anxious, 30 minutes later. It's a perpetual gift.
I love that. Yeah. And I can identify that. It's like slamming a Red Bull. Like all of a sudden there's that energy, that rush that, hey, I was of service to somebody, and there was some purpose. There was some real purpose to that. And it was brought to me, and that person was service to me. Love it. You mentioned something in there, Sean, that right now I'm struggling with in my own life, a little inside baseball. I'm feeling some resentment, some betrayal, some professional betrayal in my life. And it's weighing down on me. But you said there are no justified resentments. Man, I sure want to convince myself that I am justified to feel that way. Talk me through how I can let go of these resentments that I'm feeling and that I really want to hold on to because I feel justified in them.
Yeah, we don't want you to feel justified in anything, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, I know a little bit of that story, but basically you got to find your fault or your wrong, and if you look at the character defects, things like fear, dishonesty, laziness, things like that. Find out where those were in that process. And then find where you should have been courageous, where you should have been honest, where you should have been had a conversation or reached out, gotten the facts. My sponsor Nikki says this all the time. She's get the facts, right? And there's something that if you're like me, there's confrontation is something we don't like. So usually I push that off. Rather I avoid it, and it seems to come back to bite me in the end. If I would have had that if I would have gone to someone and brought that up, addressed it openly and honestly, and been courageous, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Now, all that aside, if we do all that, then and we're still feeling resentment, then we just need to focus on forgiveness and resentment. The book says nothing in God's world happens by mistake, right? It's a perfect world, and So we just focus on acceptance. That's the key that's the solution to all our problems. The answer, focus on that acceptance, focus on forgiving them, and take it a step further and bless them. Send them off with a parting gift, pray for them, write them a letter about how much it meant, that relationship, and that you wish them well, and that you want to move forward with walk with them hand in hand. The Bible, it says, when someone takes your tunic, give them your coat too, right? It's like, if someone's going to rob you of your wallet, give them your shoes, bless them. It's comforting. It provides us the resentment. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, right? It's not going to help. But when we can bless them, there's a spiritual reward in that realm, and it comes back to us. Again, we get what we give. And if you're giving resentment, if you're giving anger and frustration, that's what we're going to get.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Sean. And yeah, I've heard, and I've actually shared that analogy of, if I'm resenting someone, it's like me drinking poison and expecting the person I'm resenting to die. And that's where I'm sitting right now. And I'm kind of dramatizing this a little bit more than it really is, but at the same time, I'm being honest about it. I want to drink the poison right now. I feel justified in it. I feel justified in suffering, because then I can feel like the victim. But I love this solution. Acceptance is the answer. And I know that from experience. And I know all of these things from experience, that it works. Sometimes I just want to sit in it. And it's frustrating to those around me and to me, because I see it and I still want to do it. All right. We have someone who said, hey, how do we get in contact with you? So here's how to get in contact with either me or Sean. Please send an email to RECO12pod. That's RECO12pod @gmail.com. And I can connect you with Sean, or if you wanted to talk to me, I can connect you with me, because I'll get the email. All right. Very good. Sean, another thing that you shared is the step 6, step 7 mantra that you talked about. Hey, step 6 is to stop doing the things I want to do. And step 7 is to start doing the things I don't want to do. In the world, in the normal world with normies, if I was to go up and tell somebody who's a normie, who's living a relatively healthy life, and say, hey, you need to stop doing what you want to do and start doing what you don't want to do, they'd look at me like I had, 3 heads growing out of my shoulders. Talk to me a little bit more about what that means to you and how you implement that in your life.
Remember that the normies are different. They're muggles. They're not of this spiritual world, right? So they're not walking. They may or may not be, but if they're normal, they're certainly not suffering from this disease of dysfunction that we suffer from. So for me, what makes me me is, and what makes me into this program is that I don't want to do the things that normal people want to do. I think normal people wake up and make their bed. Normal people eat healthy, and have a glass of wine with a steak dinner and then go to bed. I've never done that. I've never had a glass of wine. I want 13 to start. And so we're just different. And in the beginning, this program has changed my mind, right? There's a psychic change that happens. Everything about me is different. And so when I really work this program, that mantra almost starts to shift. Now I do, when I'm spiritually recovered and feeling fit, I do want to make my bed. I do want to exercise. I do want to go out and do a social activity, meet new people, engage in friendly ways. But when I was in active addiction, I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to smoke weed and lay in bed all day. Make my bed? No way. Why? I'm just going to get it in probably 6 hours from now. Why would I make it? There's just things that changed as a result of working this program. But in the beginning, that mantra was really helpful for me to just simply understand what was happening and how I could change it.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. And that understanding that, I am now grateful that I'm living in this world of the spirit, that I'm no longer walking blindly, trying to fit in with the normies, with the muggles, because I'm not them. Now, does that mean that I reject them or avoid them? No, heck no. But I'm grateful that I get this opportunity to walk in the world of the spirit. What fears did you have, and maybe do you still have, about that separation of, hey, I'm now different and I embrace that I'm different than others, not better than, but different. How does that work in your life, in your day-to-day interactions with normies and muggles and other people who are addicts and struggling?
Yeah, I think there's a promise that in the big book that says once working these steps, we will not regret the past, nor will we wish to shut the door on it. And then it also says our past becomes our greatest asset. And so for me, the first is in the beginning, I had some shame. I had some, I was just embarrassed that this is where I was in life. And I didn't feel like sharing it. I didn't feel comfortable. And when I went out and people asked me why I wasn't drinking, I'd kind of make something up. I told them I was running a marathon and I needed to stay fit. And eventually, through working this program, that promise came true. And I started to recognize that this was a blessing that I had, that because of working these steps, I had a gift that I could now freely give away. And it started to bless me in just so many ways. And now I don't look at it like it's a flaw. I look at it like it's a blessing. And when I share with people now, when someone says, "Oh, do you want to drink?" I say, "Oh, no, I don't drink." And they'll say, like, "Why not? Are you an alcoholic?" And I work the AA steps, and, I give back and this and that. And people are curious. People are very curious. Sometimes I talk to them and I say, "Man, I used to drink too much, and I'd wake up feeling shame, regret, remorse every morning. I was anxious. I do things I didn't want to do when I drank. And now I have this new freedom. I have life, and I'm excited, and I exercise often, and I feel good. My mind is clear, and I would just wake up with a new sense of life." And when I share that message, you'd be surprised how many people are excited to hear. And you always respond with, "Wow, like I wish I could stop drinking." If we sell it with the promises that are in this book, people want what we have, right? These promises are it's something so profound. It's something so spiritually great that most people want this. They don't know how to go about it. And it's our job. That's another way we can carry this message. So
I love that. And I've experienced that same in my own recovery walk, where when somebody says something like, "Wow, Justin, you've lost a lot of weight. What are you doing?" And I don't just say, "Oh, I got this new diet," because it's not a diet. It's a lifestyle. It's a change. And I said, I let somebody else make my food decisions for me and move into that. Well, tell me about that. And I talk about recovery. I talk about 12 steps and how it's affected my life and how much better I feel and everything. And what a beautiful thing that is to be able to share that with others. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Have another question from our live audience. This is from Emma Jean. "Thank you, Sean, for a fantastic message. You said you came from drugs and alcoholism. Since doing your steps with your amazing sponsor, have you had any other isms come up for you? And if so, how long did it take you to accept it, see it, and let higher power take it?"
Man, you're bringing out the other isms. Yeah, I started with alcohol. The first year I was sober from alcohol. I was smoking weed every day and being like, "Man, I'm 12-stepper. This is great. Sober life." And about a year into it, I found the Big Book Sponsorship Fellowship, realized that I just replaced one thing for another. So then I started working on my marijuana. That led to porn, and I had to work on porn. I cut that out, and then I started crushing ice cream like it was my job. And those would probably be the big four. There's a little bit of codependency, and then fear, just this obsessive thinking. I can get trapped in these self-doubt and fear loops. But as a result of working this program, and it says we turn in all things to the Father of light, right? So all of these things, and I'm not perfect with them, but it's a practice that when I work my program, I don't feel like doing any of those things, right? And I'm still working on there's certain things, let's say ice cream, if I'm really spiritually fit, I can have some, but if I get away from it, it's like, it can quickly creep up on me. That's something that I'm not fully, just being honest, I'm not fully, aware of how that relationship is going to look going forward. But I do know that alcohol, weed, porn, that is something that I will never go back to. It has caused nothing but pain and trouble and trauma. And as for the others, it's just I work this program and I just try to turn it over to God and see where it goes.
Love it. Thank you, Sean. Any other words of wisdom before we get to our closing reading and close out with a prayer after that?
Words of wisdom. Yeah, I would just say, just really build, just this is what I want to say. If you're struggling, if you have this obsessive thought, the sooner that you can reach out to someone, the more likely you are going to be able to overcome it. So, when I was struggling with weed, I would just, if I drove past a dispensary and the thought popped, oh, I should get a joint. No, I cannot do that. But I would text my sponsor immediately and said, just drove past the dispensary. I thought I should smoke a joint. And, I don't want to. And I'd share that. Right. And it felt silly, kind of. It felt like, why, I wasn't going to pull over and go in there. So why did I share it? Well, if I've learned that if I don't address it, it can grow. And once it grows, it starts to boil almost. And once it boils in the pot, once the pot boils over, there's no putting the water back in the pot, right? I'm going to find that joint. And so my way of stirring the pot to prevent it from boil is texting my sponsor, is texting a friend. It doesn't have to be a sponsor. We just share it with someone. As soon as you find that first obsessive thought, just release it, ask God to remove it, and move on. And I found that that's led me to the most freedom.
Love it. Thank you so much, Sean. That was a great RECO12 weekly speaker meeting. And if we didn't get to your questions in the audience, or if you have other questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to RECO12pod@gmail.com, RECO12pod@gmail.com, and join in our community and ask those questions and answer others' questions that'll come up. If you're inspired and want to share something of your own insights in a 12-step style share, please go to RECO12 Share's SpeakPipe link and record your 3 to 4 minute share there. If you've not yet rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please consider going to do so now. It's a great way to help us get that word out to more addicts and those suffering in the world. I invite the audience to come back next week when we will have a great speaker, Amanda B., who will speak to us on the topic of sponsorship, the pipeline to power. This is going to be a good one. I'm excited for it. Now let's launch off into the rest of our day with a prayer from the heart that Sean has said he would like to say for us to get us launched out of here today.
Yes. Father God, we just thank you for all the participants on this call, anyone who listens in later. We thank you for Justin and what he's done in this RECO12 and this fellowship that he's building. And we just ask for just blessing and provision over that. We just ask any addictions or struggles that anyone's having in this very moment, that you just allow them to be hit with some willingness to reach out to someone new, be hit with something, a willingness to share with one another, and just provide them with a sense of freedom, a sense of joy that comes with working these steps. Give them a new sense of strength and hope and courage to just engage in a relationship with you, Father. We just ask that anyone who has any difficulties adhering to this program, that they just lay those down. They just set them aside and just turn to you, just practicing step 3 and just wiping away any of the fear, the resentment, the anger, the frustration, anything that's blocking them from you, Father. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sean. Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, everybody. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
There by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to scream, but the sound never came out. So he reached for the bottle to wash the pain away, 'cause what he wanted so badly was to live a different way. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle and rose with the rain. His ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake, and he knew for certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to share, but only lies ever came out. So he reached for the needle to numb the pain inside, and the truth that he yearned for shriveled up and died. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle, rose with the rain. Ship kept on sinking, bottom of the lake, he knew for certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Side of his mouth as he read from the book, only truth spilled out. So he reached for a power to help him through the night, 'cause what lives in the darkness dies in the light. Yeah, what lives in the darkness dies